it's Halloween, and if you're like me, you use the spooky month as an excuse to watch way too many horror movies and avoid any kind of human contact whatsoever. And I'm not picky, anything from slashers to zombies to folk horror to zombies to found footage to zombies to zombies? Have I mentioned zombies? I like zombies. I've always loved the idea of a good old-fashioned zombie apocalypse, the whole gruff survivor making it in a withered world and fighting off the undead with a group, or holding down a base of some kind has always appealed to me. Like, if it wasn't for the fact that being trans in a zombie apocalypse is basically impossible, I feel like I would love a real-world zombie apocalypse. And when it comes to zombie movies, there's one that I've always been fascinated by because it's kind of bizarre. It's a Hulu original zombie movie made and set in Australia, starring big names like Lupita Nyong'o and Josh Gad. It's directed by the guy who's supposed to direct the next RoboCop movie, and it has some of the weirdest plot points and character details I've ever seen in a zombie movie. And Taylor Swift, it has a lot of Taylor Swift. Hi. My name is Zoe with an E, and this is Little Monsters.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. But if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
The movie opens with a couple destined for disaster arguing over the opening credits. Girlfriend Sarah is mad at boyfriend David because, well, he's the fucking worst. We don't know it yet, but he's the fucking worst. She dumps him and he ends up moving in with his sister and his nephew Felix, who's going through that whole watching people sleep phase. Immediately out the gate, Dave, played by Alexander England, proves why his girlfriend left him by smoking weed in front of a 5-year-old and letting him play some Call of Duty Zombies ripoff. I mean, seriously. Let him play the actual thing. He's 5, not in utero.
Miss Caroline played the ukulele and we all sing Taylor Swift songs.
Well, you be sure to tell Miss Caroline that she can go and suck a bag of dicks.
Ah! That's a very appropriate way to talk to someone who can't even count past their own age. After dinner, Dave hears his sister read Felix a bedtime story and he realizes that what his broken relationship needs is marriage. And because he's the worst, he takes his nephew at like 3 AM dressed up as Darth Vader for some reason to go and propose to his girlfriend.
Daniel Day-Lewis just came everywhere in his pants.
Dude! He is 5 years old! Put this guy on a fucking list! Turns out, since his girlfriend broke up with him and wasn't expecting anyone to come through her very locked door, she was hooking up with someone. And guess who walks in on this? If you guessed a 5-year-old, you've either been paying attention or you're fucking weird. Instead of being a responsible adult and removing the child from the situation, he instead picks a fight with his ex-girlfriend, who very understandably rejects his proposal and kicks him out. And when he gets home, his sister, even more understandably, is pissed off that he effectively kidnapped her son to go and watch people having sex in the middle of the night. However, David is, and I cannot stress this enough, the fucking worst and starts crying to emotionally manipulate her into letting him stay.
Get out of my house. Are you crying now?
Genuinely pathetic. For the record, if you think I'm overreacting, trust me when I say it's about to get so much worse. She lets him stay on the condition that he starts helping out more and starts acting his fucking age, which includes taking Felix to school the next morning. And in David fashion, he immediately starts making fun of fat kids, tells a 5-year-old what a douchebag is, and starts calling disabled children the R word. Fucking love this guy. When he gets to Felix's class, he sees his teacher, Miss Caroline, played by the fantastic Lupita Nyong'o, and immediately gets the world's biggest boner and steps up his uncle game.
See you, Felix. Love you, mate. Felix! Love you, matey.
All complaining aside, Alexander England's comedic timing in this movie is fucking great. He really wants to impress Miss Caroline because it's Lupita Nyong'o, for Christ's sake. But it would be hard to impress her as himself because she's a good person and he's a walking pile of human douche. So he lies a ton about who he really is and volunteers to help chaperone a field trip the next day. For some reason, Miss Caroline lets him and he immediately goes home and jerks off to a picture of her and her class of children. No, I'm not kidding. No, I cannot show the scene, and yes, this guy is actually the worst. Now, in all fairness, I'm more than certain that the filmmakers weren't trying to make it look like this guy was, you know, jerking off to kids. But either way, this is still a really shitty thing to do. He was jerking off to a woman who in no way wanted or asked to be sexualized, and there were kids in the photo. I was joking before, but this guy actually belongs on a list. In case you can't tell, this movie's going for a very Dewey Finn School of Rock vibe with Dave, but I feel like they massively missed the point of this kind of character. In School of Rock, Dewey is kind of douchey and up his own ass, but here, Dave jerks off to a photo with kids in it and calls kids slurs. There's a difference between being kind of a dickhead and doing some genuinely repulsive shit, and for me, David falls into the latter. I get that he's being set up for a character arc, we'll get more into that later, but I wish that they dialed back his douchiness a little bit, or at the very least gave him a single likable quality. Because before he goes through his character arc, there are just no upsides to this guy. Anyway, the next day, the class boards the bus for their field trip, singing a shit ton of Taylor Swift and passing a US testing facility on their way there. You can always trust America to fuck up another country. You see, it's ironic because I'm British. There are two guards doing a routine inspection when they stumble across an escaped test subject who's straight up eating a person. They take him out and then break horror movie rule number 1. Never leave the other in a room unattended, especially not with a dead body, because you never know when they're gonna come back and do that. So now the zombie outbreak is in full swing, and holy shit, the zombie makeup looks so good. I couldn't find the budget of this movie, but given that it's a straight to streaming thing with little to no marketing, you can't assume that it was that big. So the fact that they were able to pull off some really cool designs with some solid gore is really impressive. Say what you want about the rest of the movie, but from a zombie front, I think they did a pretty good job. Once the class arrives at the farm, they meet Josh Gad, Teddy McGiggle played by Josh Gad. He very quickly becomes my favorite character in the movie, and you'll see why in a second. Teddy McGiggle is a children's entertainer doing some kind of TV special in Australia, so he joins the children on their tour of the park. While they're all happy and childlike, a shit ton of zombies have just found the farm, or from their point of view, a very happy meal. They start just tearing into some tourists, but the class hears and sees none of this because they're off on a tractor tour way off into the outback. And finally, David gets called out for his shitty behavior by Miss Caroline after setting a 5-year-old up for a "your mum" joke. Seriously, David, grow the fuck up. She's like 5 seconds away from washing his mouth out with soap before they're interrupted by their tour guide getting munched on by a zombie. Miss Caroline, the boss bitch she is, takes out the zombie and gets back to the tractor without a single scratch. David, however, needs help from a 5-year-old to figure out how to start the engine. They drive about as fast as they can out of there and back to the main farm, which is now overrun with zombies except for the gift shop. They try to open the door, but it's locked, the only person left inside being Teddy motherfucking McGiggle. And no, this isn't a good thing, because McGiggle's gone rogue.
Open the door! Teddy McGiggle! It's me!
Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't see you there. But see, the problem is I was here first, so you gotta go fuck yourself.
I love the shit out of Josh Gad's performance in this movie. I know that some of it is probably from a novelty of hearing Olaf swear, but even after that novelty wears off, he still owns the role and makes it work when it very easily could have gotten annoying very quickly. He's honestly perfect as a crooked children's performer, and he bounces off the rest of the cast so well.
We're good as dead if we stay here. There's no food. We'll eat one of the kids.
I hope you're joking.
Look.
In fact, the main 3 cast members here are all really well suited to their roles. Beyond Josh Gad, Lupita Nyong'o just plain kicks ass in this movie and is a really believable teacher to the kids. And Alexander England got so many laughs out of me, and when his character isn't busy being a complete carries some real emotional beats. They all bring a lot of levity to an otherwise very dark movie, and if overly dark or mean humor isn't up your alley, it can be a nice breath of fresh air. Since Teddy McGiggle refuses to let them in, Miss Caroline and the class wiggles in through this snake hole-y thingy, and David runs around the side and breaks in through a roof. Teddy's no longer McGiggling, and he starts Mick-beating the McShit out of David for like a minute and a half straight. This is by far my least favorite joke of the movie. It drags on way too long, gets really awkward really quickly, and just feels so excessive. Like at one point, David grabs McGiggle's balls and he throws up, which first of all, I'm not showing that, and second of all, what the fuck? So much of this feels like a Family Guy chicken fight that stopped being funny after the first 10 seconds. Cut it down or cut it out, for the love of God. After putting Teddy in his place, Miss Caroline and David get the place boarded up and the kids settled, whilst Teddy is busy being a real Dave.
The zombies are not real.
Like, fuck that you're not!
By this point, Miss Caroline is fed up with McGiggle's McBullshit and holds a broken glass shard to his gut, letting him know that if he puts her kids in danger again or doesn't shut the fuck up, she won't hesitate to leave him to the zombies. I know I've fangirled over Lupita Nyong'o enough already, but seriously, damn. To distract the kids from their childhood idol having his life threatened, Dave gives them all a bunch of crisps, but as it turns out, Felix is allergic to the crisps he was given and starts having an allergic reaction. Fortunately, David has an EpiPen, but unfortunately he wasn't paying attention earlier when he was told how to use it and he fucks it up, making it unusable. The only other EpiPen is left in Felix's bag, which was left on the tractor, which was left in the biggest horde of zombies this side of Melbourne. For once, David steps up and goes to get the EpiPen, but Felix doesn't want him to leave, and so Miss Caroline goes instead. So Miss Caroline goes out into the zombie horde and David comforts Felix by having the whole class sing Taylor Swift. Luckily, after beheading some zombies and somehow making it through all of this, Miss Caroline is able to get the EpiPen and save Felix. I fucking love this scene. There's such a good sense of tension by having Miss Caroline race against the clock and fight zombies. But there's also so much emotion in having the kids and Dave tearfully sing Shake It Off to Felix, whilst Dave grapples with the fact that his incompetence might have just cost his nephew his life. It honestly got me to tear up, and it works really well as a turning point for Dave's character. Immediately after this, Teddy McGiggle hears a helicopter flies past and tries to signal it, but ends up falling off a roof and needs to be saved by Dave, and afterwards he gives this big sob story about how much of a dick he is. And you really get the vibe that David is confronting the fact that he's a lot more like Teddy McGiggle than he maybe wants to be. He is selfish and gross and egotistical, and it almost killed his nephew. And from this point on, you can see him try to change that and be a better person. It's a good character arc, I like it. And like I said, Alexander England does a phenomenal job portraying it. I just could have done with a little less assholery beforehand, you know? Anyways, as it turns out, that helicopter that Teddy McGiggle was trying to signal was actually the military's, and they have a plan to deal with the zombies. They're gonna blow them up! America! Fuck yeah! Ow. I spent like 15 quid on this shotgun for this one bit. And for America! Fuck yeah! Meanwhile, back on the farm, Herschel just gave Glenn his watch. Oh shit, one sec. Meanwhile, back on the farm, everyone's taking a breather after everything that happened that day. At the end of the night, David agrees to take first watch, because now he has redeeming qualities. In fact, the next morning, he comes up with a plan to get out of there. He wants to make a distraction for the zombies and then load everyone onto the tractor and drive away. But then Teddy McGiggle butts in with a much better idea. The McGiggle-mobile. The McGiggle-mobile is the van he drives around in. It's a lot faster, and it has a hole in the roof that the kids can jump into so that they don't have to risk being on the ground with the zombies. So Teddy McGiggle and David head up to the roof and enact their plan. David makes a distraction for the zombies, and Teddy gets a head start on the McGiggle-mobile. He has to tear his way through a couple of child zombies, but he eventually does make it to the McGiggle-mobile, and David is just a couple of seconds behind. Except McGiggle doesn't let him in, because McGiggle is the McWorst. This dick move immediately comes back to bite him because it turns out his co-star Frogsy was still in the back of a van and he got zombified and just tears his face off.
Good luck sleeping tonight.
For the record, I can't show this kill because it is far too graphic for YouTube, but please watch this movie yourself because it is horrific. Now that the McGiggle-mobile is very off limits, Dave climbs on top of it to avoid the zombie horde, and whilst he's up there, he finally has enough reception to receive a call from his sister. He tells her how sorry he is and thanks her for everything she's done for him before losing connection. Meanwhile, Miss Caroline is dealing with the best condom commercial because Felix is missing because he just ran into the zombie horde dressed up as Darth Vader. I genuinely don't know if this is the dumbest or coolest kid I've ever seen. I do really like that the kids in this movie are allowed to be kids without it being too overly annoying or unconvincing. Like a kid dressing up as a character from a movie and running into a danger they don't really understand makes sense and plays into the teacher-kid dynamic really well. Throughout the film, Miss Caroline acts and behaves as a teacher actually would, using tricks like 1, 2, 3 eyes on me and walking in a single file line to survive a zombie apocalypse. I think it's a pretty neat dynamic that I haven't seen played out in the genre before. Felix, like a little badass, is actually able to make it to the tractor, and because he's obsessed with tractors, he's actually able to drive the thing, saving David and his whole class. Now that everyone's on the tractor, they're able to drive out of there to safety, with a bunch of zombies following them. Turns out tractors designed to pull kids around a farm aren't really that fast, so the zombies stick pretty close to them. So to make everyone feel a little bit more comfortable, Miss Caroline sings some nursery rhymes, which the zombies like and clap along with.
If you're happy and you know, clap your hands.
Do you realize what this means? These zombies aren't too far gone. There's still people in there. They can... Oh, right, yeah. America. The movie ends with everyone being quarantined in a tent together and singing some goddamn Taylor Swift. One more little fun fact for you, originally production couldn't get their hands on the rights to use Taylor Swift's music. But Lupita Nyong'o thought that it was important enough to the plot that she personally got in contact with Taylor and got the rights herself. I fucking love Lupita Nyong'o, dude. So that's Little Monsters, by far one of the wildest zombie movies I have ever seen. It's a little messy at times and a little too mean-spirited for my taste, like there are so many gags in this movie that are just a little much for me. But if dark humor is your cup of tea, or you're like me and you're willing to look past it to enjoy everything else this movie has to offer, I'd say give it a chance. It's got a lot of character to it, and even though it's seriously out of pocket at times, it's also really charming. Happy Halloween. Groovy.